the planet Earth.
Some call me nature.
I am very passionate about the planet
Earth.
A living, breathing planet capable of sustaining whatever life forms we see fit to deposit on it.
Spock, judging by the pollution content of the atmosphere, I believe we have arrived.
It's the planet stupid.
No. It's the planet stupid.
Our guide for It's the Planet Stupid is the wonderful Belinda Weymouth. And good morning to you, Belinda Weymouth.
Good morning, Mark. How are you?
I'm well. I am excited to speak with you. I won't delay except to say that I'd like you to, if you would please, receive the rod.
Receive the rod of equity and mercy.
All right. And now we can continue.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. I do appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. The stories that we want to tell today are related to birds and climate change and also policy. I wonder if you could speak to the way that birds are affected by climate and our relationship with the bird population.
Yeah. So we love birds, and they are an indicator species. They're really showing us what is happening with climate change. There have been some really big reports over the past couple of years that are pretty sort of terrifying. And then on Monday, after 4 decades of research and looking at 86,000 birds in North and South America, migratory ones and non-migratory birds of the Amazon, what scientists have been able to work out is that some small birds, their bodies are getting smaller and their wingspans are getting wider. And the thing about a smaller body holds less heat. A smaller object has a higher ratio of surface area to volume. So these smaller bird bodies can stay cooler. And then this longer wingspan means that these birds can still make these really, long migrations that they do, despite having smaller bodies that produce less energy. So it's pretty wild. It's pretty wild that we can see out there with all these, different species of birds, what climate change, is doing to them physiologically and biologically, that they are changing, right in front of us.
That's fascinating. That really is fascinating. I know that the navigating of urbanscape on the part of birds is an increasingly difficult one. They die hitting everything from, I suppose, of buildings to light poles to windows. Their life is fraught with all kinds of difficulties. So migration or just existing within, human development is really a tough struggle for them, isn't it?
Yeah. The buildings, safe buildings, is really, really important. Right now it's spring and there are thousands and thousands of birds migrating through Los Angeles, the city where you and I are, Mark. I mean, I know right now you're in DC, but, ordinarily you're here. And all these birds, they use the light of the stars and they use the magnetic, fields of the earth to help them navigate on these migratory paths. But the problem is, cities, because of the lights attract cities and attract birds. And so they are, flying through our cities. And what are our cities filled with? Huge, tall buildings that they can crash into. And so there's a big thing about making buildings bird safe. And tons of cities all the way from New York to Portland, Oregon, have already instigated ordinances, to make sure that new buildings use bird safe glass, because of course glass, that looks like it's a no barrier to a bird. And if it's reflecting sky and trees, they're like, oh, that's my flight path. And they just go straight into it. And we just had the Los Angeles City Planning Commission approve a wildlife ordinance. It's a little bit limited. It's requiring new buildings and remodels to use bird-safe glass in the Santa Monica Mountains proposed wildlife district. And it really needs to be all of Los Angeles. All buildings need to have this bird-safe glass. And it can be all kinds of things. You can put film on it. It can be decals, stickers. People can do this, in their own homes, even having window screens is makes your windows more bird safe, stops the birds flying into them. But we need cities, and cities are doing this. But in 2019 we had this crazy, I shouldn't say it's crazy, it's just crazy, the findings. They said that 30% of birds in North America, so in Canada and the US, are gone since the 1970s. It's a loss of 3 billion birds. And then last year, on top of that, a report came out saying, look, 50% of US bird species have lost half of their population, in the last 50 years. So, yeah, birds are really endangered. And the bird safe buildings, is one thing. But the burning of fossil fuels, obviously, that's, changing the atmosphere, because what do they fly through? They fly through, the atmosphere. And, the making buildings safe. So that's obviously, good news that we're aware that we need to do that and that we're doing that. And then the other thing that policymakers, really, obviously ornithologists and scientists are making sure that policymakers know this. Where we've had concerted conservation efforts, and the one that really stands out for birds are wetlands. So wetlands where there have been these really concerted conservation efforts, what we've actually seen, while all these other species have been, plummeting in their numbers, waterfowl and water birds have actually surged in population. And that's a direct, that's causation. That's, you conserve their habitat, and guess what? Waterfowl, their population went up by 34% and water birds by 18% respectively. So those are really, incredible numbers. So there is a win when we do the right thing by birds. We get this fantastic result.
Well, I thought of you today as you share that bit of good news, and as you say, fantastic result. I thought of you because there was other good news. I was reading that the Bay, the San Francisco Bay, which is toxified in different ways, a bunch of raw sewage and chemicals are dumped into the Bay, even illegally. And there's a sort of toxic brew that exists in the Bay. The Bay has never been cleaner in recent memory now. And the reason for that is the melt. A lot of the snow melt and a lot of the winter's rains have resulted in a cleaning of the bay. And this is true of waterways across California. So all sorts of creatures, from salmon to birds, have been helped by the fact that this record winter has produced all of this additional fresh water into so many of these different waterways.
Yeah, dilution is the solution to pollution.
Yeah.
Right there.
Right.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the interesting thing also is, the increase in all the rain means more food. So a lot of species are really kind of, if you look at the blooms that are happening all over California as a result of all the, precipitation and rain that we got, and then this increased food supply, because, while a lot of bird species populations are plummeting, there are, swans and geese and ducks, they've got more food. And so their populations are growing. So yeah, there are a lot of different forces at play that are affecting these other species that we share the planet with. And, I'm really glad that the bay water is cleaner. That's great for species up there. And then we just need to think about other ways that we can, make sure we really conserve, these habitats, because, we need these other species, we need them on the planet. One of the things I notice sometimes living here is, where's the bird song? I'm not hearing it.
Yeah. Yeah,
and when I read that, in 2019, when I read the report about, 3 billion birds, gone, 30% of the birds in North America, it was pretty shocking. And people love birds. Do you know that we have 45 million bird watchers in America?
That's wild. I did not know that.
What?
I did not know that.
Yeah. So people love birds. And the thing that's super cool is that, bird safe buildings, and protecting birds. All these amateur bird watchers are really part of these conservation efforts. They collect feathers. You know, UCLA here in LA, they have the biggest collection of bird feathers in the world. One of the scientists there knew that they would be this really the DNA from feathers would be a very important conservation tool. And they get sent people, these, you know, amateur bird watchers, when they find feathers, the date, the time, the location, they put them in an envelope and they send them to UCLA and say, this is where I found this bird. And, you know, and from all this bird's feather, from all this, you know, citizen science, scientists have been able to really map migratory routes, how they're changing, you know, so now we know where, you know, do you put the wind turbines? Where don't you put the wind turbines? This is a migratory path. And I just want to put this out there very quickly, because I know we're going to get this in the chat. You know, we're going to have people say, hey, what about wind turbines and birds flying into those? Just so our listeners know, more birds are killed by the burning of fossil fuels than birds are killed by wind turbines and solar. So, you know, the energy transition has to happen, and birds will actually be safer once we stop burning and putting all the pollutants into the atmosphere that we get from burning fossil fuels.
The other sort of alternative, and I think you actually featured it, there they are, all the different feathers. I love that idea that there's sort of a mosaic of migration patterns that's developed because people grab these feathers and they're able to document where they found them, what time, etc. But the new kind of wind turbines don't even involve the large sort of windmill things. They're now these they're the conical shaped wind turbines. Isn't that right?
Yeah, there are all different kinds, yes. And there are ones that you can, you know, install on tall buildings. I mean, yes, the technology is really, you know, getting amazing, you know, with the wind turbines, and also just, you know, the placement of them is, you know, is so important.
It's
you know,
critical,
where you
sure.
put them in. And, you know, obviously there have been some growing pains, as there always are, you know, with, you know, new technology. But yes, you know, this is, you know, this in the long run is going to be way better for the birds, for us, and for, you know, all life on Earth.
Thanks for that. Belinda says, Jennifer, I hear that about turbines all the time, and now I can retort appropriately. But
Yes,
appropriate
Jennifer.
retorts are always my favorite retort.
Yeah. No, please retort with scientific backup that it's thousands more birds are killed by the pollution that is put into the atmosphere from burning, you know, coal, natural gas, and, you know, other fossil fuels. Yeah, absolutely. And
And Randy, who's your favorite, I don't think you actually, he's my favorite. He sends me long screeds about nuclear and about gas and about the electric grid and about, you know, he says nuclear reactors don't kill birds either. Randy, I can always count on you. All right, Belinda, we love visiting with you. Have a great week. And I'm glad you have the rod of equity and mercy, because now with that,
Receive the rod of equity
And mercy.
and mercy.
it's going to be a great weekend.
I will
for you.
go out from here, you know, enlightened and with my true purpose,
Exactly.
you know, in place. So
Use
thank
it
you
in
so
good
much.
health. Exactly.
Thank you. I will.
All right. Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.